Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to episode, what is this, 18, 17, 18?
Something like that.
Yeah, almost episode 20 of the Marvel Buddies podcast. How's it going, addicts?
It's going great, micro. I like the clean cut micro.
The fresh cut micro. Yeah, I got a haircut before Marvel Buddies. Not everyone's as committed to the grind. Yeah, no. um, but yeah, I have finished bringing you the Darkhold. Addicts and his G Fuel or whatever over there. But I'll be finishing off the Darkhold here and introducing a new character for you guys, as well as a new event coming next week because it will be the 31st. The 31st lands on a Monday, so I'll be giving you a new character that day, or a new event that day for the end of the month. But yeah, so if you guys remember, we left off with Carnage here getting the powers of the Darkhold, and so I want to just finish off touching on the Darkhold. And before I start the characters, I want to make sure like you guys understand or have some sort of like like the book isn't too confusing basically. But we start here with a bunch of repurposed Sentinels underneath the U.S. and they're just mining for something, right? Until one of them
Okay.
actually breaks bedrock and finds the Darkhold underneath. Here it is, the book trapped and chained up underneath U.S. territory. And here's basically what talking about like the future of the Darkhold, like what would happen if whoever's mining here got their hands on the Darkhold. Here's all the Avengers getting absolutely railed by the demons of Kython back here. And it's like a look into the future here. You got Captain America bleeding out like crazy. Here's Doctor Reed Richards' daughter here, Valeria, running towards Franklin. She's like, "Oh, we gotta fix it. We gotta stop the beasts." And she freezes up here from one of the beasts, and bam, you couldn't stop it, Valeria. And here's her zombified demonified brother Franklin messing her up,
Ooh.
cutting her head off, her jaw off there. Bam. And
Okay.
Kython
Okay.
rises to destroy the
Goodness.
planet. And that's the end of
Wait,
the.
wait, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. We going into Marvel Zombies here?
No, we're not going into Marvel Zombies here, unfortunately.
That
But
look like Marvel Zombies to me.
little bit, right? It did look a little bit like Marvel Zombies, but it's not. It's the demonification of Franklin Richards by Kython. And here he is, ready to destroy the planet. And that's the end of the episode. Thanks for coming. Do 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 do. Funny, haha. Anyway, Wanda here wakes up from Wanda here wakes up from her dream, and she's like, duh, duh, what's going on? And she realizes that she got like a glimpse of a nightmare of a potential future. Um, and she's like, well, first words of chaos, the fleshbound book. It's like here we go again. Kython is coming, and back on that dig site, you have these repurposed Sentinels as well as this lady who you'll find out who her name is later. They pick up the book, and this dude immediately goes and reads it. And while he reads it, his head starts to explode because you can't actually read the Darkhold. And basically, these are the guy they're reading it. And she's like, go mad. The book is still a conduit for Kython, as I once was. And so the lady here is like, who is speaking? She turns around and immediately gets blasted by the Scarlet Witch, breaks into the dig site for that book. She's like, only the Scarlet Witch can read the book. They start fighting. She's like, I know you witch. Doom rejected your love. You come here out of what? Vengeance? Spite? Yes, they were together at one point recently. It was awkward and weird. But um they start fighting. She's like, I'm here because I know Victor and you're seeking power out of greed. and they start like fighting. Really cool fight scenes coming. But Wanda blasts her with this nasty Kamehameha, just absolutely rails her. And what's her face steps up, mystery person who works for Doctor Doom, with the who has apparently has the power cosmic. She's like, seems the power cosmic cannot be quelled by the likes of you. And she takes the book and she's like, you believe she like takes the book basically, but it's like levitating towards someone else. He's like, you believe you know much, witch, and yet despite our past, Doctor Doom comes in. He's like, you do not know Doom. And they like, they do that standoff thing where they're like, Victor Maximoff, standoff thing. And here they are, and she's like, you expect me to bow? You wouldn't dig up the book without knowing the dangers. So what are you planning, right? Because clearly Doctor Doom here has some sort of like well orchestrated plan, and he's like, I'm taking the book. In taking the book, I take the key to freedom. Kython is a rival. No, and so basically, look at the detail on this man. Look how sick Doctor Doom's burnt face is here.
Oh yeah, I definitely respect that.
Yeah, it's look how
Those-
sick it is. But basically Doctor Doom's gone a little wacko here. Doctor Doom's gone a little nuts here. He's basically like, I'm gonna read the book and take on Kython because he's a rival. And Wanda's like, yo, you can't be serious here. Like even reading the first page would drive any living creature mad, which you find out in Avengers Children's Crusade, which may or may not be the next book event I cover. Like I said, may or may not. Wink, wink, wink. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awkward silence.
it's I want people to know that I may or may not cover Avengers Children's Crusade
But
next
about
week.
those requests that come in though, we'll get
We'll get to those. All right, we got to get to an
we'll
event
get to
at the
those.
end of the month.
Gotta do
Yeah,
what I want to do first, but
but
that's fine.
once I'm done doing what I want to do, don't worry, guys. I'll get to your character. I know you see I have characters listed here on the forum that I want to get to, and it's actually thank you for reminding me. A lot of people have requested for Black Widow, and I don't know if you know or not, but I did do an episode on Black Widow. I think that was episode 4 or 5. I don't remember. But I did do an episode on Black Widow. If you guys are
Might as well
interested,
redo it.
yep, I could redo it if you guys want me to. But I might not go into detail on her backstory. I might just do like additional Black Widow content, like talk more about her. But that's only if you guys are interested in that. Like let me know now as opposed to later, because I might not see it, I guess. Anyway, back to this. We have Doom here telling Wanda his plan about how he plans on taking the book and reading it, and explaining to her how he did read it, not through his own eyes, but through the eyes of, hold on, let me get there, a Doombot. You know, the Doombot read it, and I don't know how that worked and how he didn't go mentally compulsive and blow up, but she's like, you can't use the book if it's not how was it meant. Your eyes that woke it's your eyes that woke up Kython, and he's gonna come back and cross the dimensional portal into our world, and we have to stop him. He's like, basically, she's trying to explain to Doom that we need to stop Kython and like seriously take him on, or we're all gonna die. And Doom's here kind of just like, your pleas are meaningless, but I too have suffered of visions late. I will, like Doom's kind of just being like Doctor Doom, basically. He's like, I'll take him on, don't worry. And and it's basically how he's going. He's like, she starts explaining, she's like, what is this place? He's like, the this is where we're developing our technology. Basically, the vibrograph used to survey the surface of not Earth, but the other planet that or the other dimension that they're planning on going to. In Doom's plans, it will pierce dimensions, not stone, with the true Darkhold itself as the lodestar. So he plans on using the Darkhold to transport himself to the other realm, in where he can take on Kython. She's like, "Oh, you read the book. I interpreted stories. Stories must hide a way to tame Kython." He's like, and he's basically just ignoring her the whole time. He's like, "The vibrograph will ferry us to the other realm," and he's basically like completely ignoring her until he takes the book. And he's like, "So we got to get to work," and he's basically like, "I'm gonna do this," pretty much the whole time. He's like, I got this. I'm gonna do this. I don't need you, kind of situation. She's trying to like help him out, let him know, and she's like, I'll read the stories. He's like, basically back when Kython did try to invade, these the Darkhold defenders, the five warriors, once drove Kython back to his other realm, and he's like, we will not be seeking a team. They defeated him for a time, but entering the other realm will cost them their sanity. And she's like, past this prophecy, the right divining spell, we gotta get a magical modern team to take on, if we're gonna have our best shot at taking on Kython. And she's like, even if the five could beat Kython, the cost of setting foot in another realm is it's maddening. You'll literally go insane, mental, just from stepping foot on the other realm. And he's like, once five were needed to exploit Kython's weakness, but all those five aspects now rest in Doom. And this dude is full chat in it. Honestly, Doctor Doom gives zero shits. He's just like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna fight this guy, and I'm gonna beat the crap out of him. And that's what he does. He starts using the books. He starts like, he's like, no, Lord, I'll go with you. You cannot go. And then he just like, zoop, TPs. She's like, we need to work together. And he just ditches her and goes to the other realm to fight Kython. And basically, she says, we need to save your boss here, cause we need to save your boss here, cause Doom literally just dipped us and went to go fight a god. And you and me, we need to make a team here. We need to find a team here that'll help us go and take on Kython. And she uses a tracer spell as well as her cosmic powers to make a team of five heroes that'll be strong enough to take on Kython. And those five consist of Iron Man, the Dreamer, right? One of the five like catalysts, I guess you can call it, or like aspects that make the team the Dreamer. They take Iron Man, and then you have the Hunter, Blade, the Vampire Hunter gets taken, as well as the artist Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. And then you have the Stoic, Black Bolt, and finally the Fool, Spider-Man. as he's swinging
The
with
menace, the menace to
the menace
society.
to society, as he's swinging with
Of course,
Rhino.
Spider-Man.
Yep, they take Spider. They obviously have to take Spider-Man with them, right? And the five of them get teleported, into Doom's secret underground facility. And they are like, oh, it's good to catch up. It's a miracle that you got out of your man cave these days. It's like, unfortunately, this is no miracle, Janet. And they all look at each other like Maximoff. It's like, oh, what's going on? And of course, Spider-Man. Didn't she date a robot? Yeah,
Huh?
yeah. Did she date a robot? Look at Spider-Man here, like upside down. Did he date a robot? Yeah, it's a Vision. um, Logan Blade did get a weird ass movie, and he's getting another weird ass movie. This time with Mahershala Ali. Um, yeah. Anyway, they're like, well, I know what a cattle call is when you see one, so this must be important. What's going on here? And Wanda's like, Kython's rising again in its strongest form yet, and I brought you here to take him on. His prison is the other realm, and he's always needed a vessel like me until today when the true Darkhold was unearthed by Doom. Victor raced to battle it in the other realm, but Kython will chew him up and take Earth as his revenge. And basically, what's her face gets upset that there's a bunch of heroes in Doom's base, so she like attacks, but they all back up. They like Wanda is quick to back them up, and so they all like sit and contemplate because Wanda explains to them basically that the only way to know what you're going up against is to read the Darkhold. Even though I could feel like Wanda could just explain it to them, but they have to basically, to not lose their sanity in Dark World, read the Darkhold, or in the other realm, they have to read the Darkhold so that they don't go completely insane. And most of the heroes are like Iron Man, Spider-Man, Wasp, like yeah, definitely, Blade. They're like, yeah, I don't mind reading from this, but Black Bolt's different, right? When Black Bolt reads it, Black Bolt reads it as the perspective of the King of the Inhumans, and he says, I can't do this. I can't go with you guys. I'm a king, and my kingship duties come before me. Plus, I'm also
And kingdoms were made to be taken over by Magneto in the next page.
who doesn't actually addicts. Cough, cough, cough. You didn't see that.
roll over the
Uh, 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 uh,
take over the United
take
Nations.
over the United. Actually, it's really funny because I do have a little nation taken over in a little bit in that net once we get finished with this one. But basically, here's Black Bolt like saying like, I can't really do this, and so he starts to because if you guys don't know who Black Bolt is, he's the king of the Inhumans, and his superpower is any noise that comes out of his mouth basically is strong enough to like shatter everything, your eardrums, windows, rock, buildings, everything. Like him fully yelling at you would probably blow up like a chunk of earth. So it's why he doesn't speak. So he starts to sign language. I don't know how to, especially because it's in not Earth human sign language. It's in Attilan sign language, which Attila is the place that they are from. The Inhumans live, which is like on the blue side of the moon. Anyway, he starts to translate, and basically he's saying that the Inhumans have lost so much. We're in a period of healing, and we've just begun to figure out the future for or fortify our future, and they must be my sole concern. And so the last bit, like Iron Man tries to like, he's like, I can afford no other, and bam, TP's back in his freaking Doctor Doom, half dead. He's like, I am fluent stock. King to king, Black Bolt wishes to know about Other Realm. And there it is. Literally, the Other Realm has just a giant tentacle monster in the sky. Buildings have been disintegrated. Here's Doom.
Okay, the giant tentacle monster.
Mhm.
Is that the same thing that's been appearing in Marvel What If, or
Are you talking about
what's going to appear in
in
Multiverse of Madness?
Multiverse of Madness? So that's Shumagarath, and I don't know how they intend on doing Shumagarath.
But is that the same person that appeared in What If? The same monster?
It might be. Honestly, it could be. There's
Okay.
there's a big potential that this monster here may be that same tentacle monster we saw in What If. Not 100%, but if this is Shumagarath, because like I mean I could always Google where is Shumagarath from. Is he from? Oh my god, archetypal three demons extra mentally is one. Nah. I guess he's from another dimension, so it's very vague, but it could be basically. I don't actually know a lot about Shumagarath except for that he was in Marvel vs. Capcom and he's been showing up a lot. Very like slow, silent character, or like villain. But I could definitely, if you guys want more on Shumagarath, I can look more up on him. But yeah, basically these monsters just start like ripping and tearing people to shreds, and in comes
Rip and tear until it is done.
yup, basically. And here's this dude. If you know what this is right here, it's Doctor Doom's mouth plate, cause he ripped it off. And here he's like he's basically back at Earth. He's like, what did you see? And he's like, in the pulverized metropolis of madness, where no mortal had sanely walked, where the face of chaos first met Lasviria's unflinching resolve. And here he is like taking on all the monsters, and this just like tongue rips Doom's freaking jaw off, like clean off his face. He's like, it's for Doom's eyes alone. And it's just like, Wanda's like, no, damn it, it's not good enough, Victor. You survived the other realm. You have vital intelligence. You have to tell us to hell with your pride. And he's like, nah, chief. Instant transmission. Zoom. God.
Dip.
Plays the I ain't gonna tell you shit card. And he is just like he pulls
You have
the
to tell us. No, I don't.
no I don't pulls the Homer into the bushes card and just goes off. And they're all like
Well, he pulls the Addicts
pulls
card.
the addicts card just like later. Uh, basically,
Me as imposter, baby.
yeah, yeah. Addicts when we watch him vent. Uh, anyway, uh, they all start contemplating whether they're gonna want to read. Heroes are trying to convince Black Bolt, and now they basically explain that if Kython is summoned to Earth, he'll be able to not just take over the planet, but also the moon and Attilian that's on the moon.
Oh no.
And so he's like, "Oh no, I have to protect my people." So they all
I
agree.
have to take over. I'm going to take over the planet.
Yeah,
They are
they are
doomed.
doomed. And so he agrees to read a chapter of the book. You see,
They have the planet.
they all start reading. They do have the planet. They all start reading here, and just as they start reading, they're like, "Oh look, nothing's happened. Everything seems." Yep. Yep. They're like, oh, in Doom's name, what has they done? And they have all read too much. Here's Spider-Man now, right here. He's like, wild trip, am I right? New memories, new bodies, new moves, and a fun new point of view. He's like, no, get behind me. They've read far too much. And this is how the comic ends. These are the Avengers roster here: Black Bolt, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Wasp, and I was gonna say Beast. What's his name? Blade. All got in some way, shape, or form zombified, I guess,
Corrupted.
corrupted by the book. Iron Man. Yep. And basically, this is an ongoing series. The last
This
thing
is
they've
what happens when you take your brother's laptop.
This is what happens when you take your brother's laptop. Get turned into a zombie. Um, but this is basically an ongoing series. I can cover the full series if you guys want me to. If you guys find this interesting. Um, Currently, what we have is they've gone in and made individual comics on each of the characters. So they dropped Iron Man first. I think Blade is next, and then it's Wasp, Black Bolt, and they ended off with Spider-Man. Before they, I'm assuming, branch out and create this whole new like saga that they're gonna make with this. Because this is probably like the next big Marvel event in the comics. If I'm not mistaken. Um, so this ends our discussion of the Darkhold. If anyone has any questions on the Darkhold, you can feel free to ask me throughout the episode. But this is the Darkhold, right? And Addicts, I did bring you a character this week, a specific character that I have planned on covering next week. Do you want to ponder from this image which character I've brought you? Maybe one that can read or use or has some connection to the Darkhold?
Hmm.
Hmm. I'm sorry, guys. I know you guys weren't expecting it. I did indeed bring you the Kool-Aid Man. Is it the jar or is it the Kool-Aid that makes up the man? No, I brought you actually funny enough, Marvel did write the comic to the Kool-Aid Man and I'm pretty sure they created the Kool-Aid Man if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that's a thing that they made as like a character, like a superhero character for Kool-Aid, or if Kool-Aid had already pre-made the character. I don't know which predates which. They're both came I'm assuming they both came out around the 70s or 80s. So,
The Kool-Aid Man is the Kool-Aid.
he is
And
the
then the
Kool-Aid.
glass.
You see, I thought he would be more of
Wait,
the
no,
jar.
no, he's the
He's the
glass.
glass. Yeah,
Uh,
he's the
yeah, he's
jar.
the glass
Yeah,
because he has had his Kool-Aid
outside of his
spilled.
yeah. Anyway, I have brought you I have brought you the only character strong enough to wield the book, the Scarlet Witch. And speaking of book, we have her first debut, which is the Uncanny X-Men number 4, came out March 1st, 1964 and was written by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And this comic, as all X-Men comics start, the X-Men are training. They're training for something. What? We don't know. Why? We don't know. What's gonna end up happening? Magneto's gonna whip their ass. They're gonna let
Take
him
over some United
take up some
Nations.
United. Actually, we're gonna get to see some taking over here as they're training, and they're like, all right, it's Jean's turn now. Marvel Girl, can you please remove the substance from this box here? And she's like, oh yeah, and then they're like, oh, it's a birthday cake, and they're like, yep, it's been exactly 1 year since our class began, and we should celebrate. And they all start celebrating, and Cyclops eye beams the cake and starts slicing pieces for everybody with his eye beams, and they're all having fun eating cake. Professor smoking a pipe, boop boop, You know, and while that's going on, we all turn our attention to the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants that are having dinner. You know, you got OG's Toad and Mastermind, I think his name is, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, Mastermind. And Toad's all like slobbing on his food and stuff. Yeah, exactly. And Mastermind's like, if the Toad is annoying, he's like, oh, Quicksilver's like, Toad, you chomp your food like this in front of my sister, you obnoxious fool. And she's like, it's alright, Wanda's like, oh, it's alright, Pietro, don't fight on mine account. And Mastermind's like, ah, if the Toad is annoying, most lovely Scarlet Witch, I'll put a stop to that. And he like uses his illusion powers to turn him into a pig, and Toad's like, ah, it don't bother me. I know it's just an illusion. He just keeps eating like a total slob. And Wanda gets upset. She's like, ugh, you're just as gross as him using your illusion magic for these things. And she's like, I've had enough of your illusions. They're as repulsive as Toad's table manners. And he's like, haha, spunky, my little witch. I like that in a female. Maybe one day you'll be worthy enough to mate with be a worthy mate for Mastermind. And that pisses her off. She's like, ah, how dare you speak to me that way? And then she starts like using her magic there. She's like, I'd rather die than marry you. And Quicksilver's like, Wanda, don't point your finger at him. It'll cause a disaster to occur. And it does. She uses her magic to cause this to spill onto him, the water or whatever. She's like, ah, you try to make a laughing stock out of Mastermind. Do you regret? Do you? You'll regret to live this, my fine sorceress. And they all just start fighting. But Quicksilver is like, I ain't gonna let you hurt my sister. So he zooms and punches her in the face. And is like, we'll remain here waiting for the leader. And then they're all like, huh, where is Magneto? And we turn to Magneto, who's on a ship, a boat, and uses his metallic powers to basically hold everyone hostage and freeze them up. And and he
Okay, the part I've been waiting for.
takes this battleship as his own. And meanwhile, while Magneto has his battleship, you see Warren flying just above the sky. Angel takes his flight, doing his recon as usual. And then he sees, he's like, huh, there's no crew on this battleship, but it's going at full speed. Maybe someone's found a way to remote control pilot a metal ship. Huh. While this red and purple man is like legitimately behind this
Oh
tube
no,
here,
a metal ship.
moving at sonic speeds. Could they
If
be?
only there was a magnetic mutant around that could. Oh no.
Oh no. Anyway, Warren comes back not seeing Magneto, and Magneto, on the other hand, is like, huh, I heard flying, but I didn't. I wonder who it is. And he just like doesn't see this dude in or yellow and blue spandex. Like, must be a seagull. I mean, that seems a little more reasonable than giant ship flying at driving itself at like Mach 5 through the ocean. But he comes back and he's telling the professor what went down. He's like, yeah, everything's good. Saw this boat was moving pretty quick, and he's like, all right, well, that is kind of worrying. Let's run your inspection, see how you're doing. And they're like, something's worrying me. And he's like, oh, is it me that's worrying you? He's like, no, it's not you, Warren. It's that freighter. It seems to sense something wrong, something strangely ominous about it. Call it a hunch, if you will. And while that happens, Magneto brings the ship back to their island. And they're all like upset because they believe they should be using their mutant powers to strike and take over. And Magneto returns and he's like, now that we have our first ship, we'll launch our first attack. The five of us alone and unaided shall conquer an entire nation as a test of our supreme power. This is Addix here is taking over his first nation.
I want the United Nations.
He wants the whole thing, but I guess this predates that UN stuff, so baby steps.
You got to start somewhere. Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Baby steps.
Giant metal ship that you're controlling. Yeah, you got to start.
So start somewhere, And so Toad's like, Toad, to my master, how have you been? I must explain to you what happened. And he's like talking about how Mastermind was fighting with Wanda and Pietro, and he's like, oh. This guy was like, no, I've not been fighting. What are you talking about? And he's like, don't believe him, Master. I was here. I heard him. He tried to harm the Scarlet Witch. And he's like, I'll get you for this. And that quickly pissed off Magneto like, oh, I told you not to bicker with our people. He like drops them, and then he goes over to Wanda and Pietro to see if they're okay, and he's like, gotta tell them like, you guys gotta keep your personal biz to yourself. And Pietro's like, hey, look, I want to leave. I don't think my sister should be here. It's not right, man. You're having my sister, my lovely sister, dress up like this and use her powers for evil. And he's like, oh, but have you forgotten that not too long ago, when I came to your village in the heart of Europe, have you forgotten how the superstitious villagers called you a witch because of your mutant powers? And he pulls that card on him basically, and he's like, "Oh, you cannot leave. You have forgotten. You all must have most of have you forgotten you most of all what you owe me?" He's like, "Oh, she's right, Pietro. I have to serve him until my debts are paid." She's like, "Then I'll serve with you, I guess." And it causes them to like stay and obey their new master, who prepares to attack a tiny nation known as Santo Marco, which is I'm apparently did not know this existed, but it is apparently in South America. And later on the newspaper, like days later, like tiny republic of Santa Marco sheltered by mysterious naval craft. And he's like, huh, it's incredible. One fighter attacking an entire South American nation. Who would dare, except for the ones hiding, the evil mutants. And it's a red alert going through the X mansion. It's like, oh, everybody get ready. And so they all get dressed up in their spandex, but they're like, whoa, 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 what's wrong with Professor? Is he sleeping? And then they're like, nah, nah, nah. He's talking. He's communicating mentally with someone. It's Magneto. And thus begins the world's strangest meeting between the world's most powerful Homo superiors. Only you and your X-Men stand between the mutants and world conquest. Why do you fight us? For you too are mutant. He's like, I seek to save mankind, not destroy it. And oh, by the way, I read this whole comic in the voices of the '90s X-Men characters. I don't know if that's something that like if you guys read like stuff based off TV, you guys read it like
Yeah,
the way the
yeah, that's
characters do it.
definitely how I do
This is
it.
how I read it. Like I read it exactly off the '90s cartoon. It's like their voices
Hey,
are permanently engraved here.
Micro, I gotta go make a quick phone call. I'll be right
You're
back.
fine. I got you. And here we go. He's like, we must use our powers to bring about a golden age on Earth, side by side with ordinary humans. Like, never! These humans must be our slaves. They are not worthy to share dominion of Earth. And he's like, you made your choice. Forever we are mortal foes. And he's like, then the X-Men will stop you, Magneto. It will be mutant against mutant to the death if need be. But mankind must be saved. And they're like, oh look, he woke himself up. He's like, oh, was that Magneto? He's like, he won't escape us this time. He's like, I know, but for the moment, he's preparing his attack, and we must ensure that he doesn't succeed. And while the X-Men head off to fight the Brotherhood, Magneto sets up his plan, which is to basically have Mastermind pretend that a bunch of soldiers are marching into the tiny nation and force them to surrender without fighting, which they do. Like, oh, we cannot fight them. We must surrender. There's too many of them. Oh, run for your lives. It's an entire army. We've lost. It appears though by magic, which it is, right? It's like, they do not dream that the army is an illusion. And he's like, well, we're done, Mastermind. Continue this illusion until I have the control of the Republic. And he does. Slowly, all the people that were soldiers of the island become soldiers of Magneto, and the little nations are closed, and all roads are leading. Little nations closed. All roads leading in and out are heavily patrolled, and they begin phase two of the plan, which is to trap the X-Men. And so while Magneto has his plan to attack the X-Men, Professor X is like, we got to find a way to take out Magneto, and he does, and he starts setting up a plan. He's like, Hank, you'll be the first. You got to scale the tower and take care of these guys here. And so he does. He scales the tower, drop kicks the crap out of these guys, and bam, in comes Toad, who was already upon doing the guards, they got Toad to strike back and knock down Beast here. Like, so Beast is just like, gotta grip onto the wall real good. But Toad's like, damn, I gotta knock him down. So he's like trying to throw rocks at him. But Mastermind's like, I'll show you how to handle him. And he puts an illusion to make the wall look like glass. So he starts like slipping and sliding off the wall. He's like, oh, you see, Toad, there are times where a clever illusion can be more effective than brute strength. And he's like, I turned the wall. Yeah, I thought the walls turned to glass, the fool. And on the other side of the map, here's Warren or Angel taking on gunfights. He's like, pew 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 pew, flying through everybody, knocking them out. And he's like, oh, you're fast winged one, but not as fast as Quicksilver. And he just knocks and sucker punches the crap out of Warren. And Warren's trying to fight back, but he's just too fast. So he decides to outbrain him by flying directly into a brick wall. And here comes Quicksilver flying behind them. He's like, no, show me something. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, speed's the only thing that counts. He's like, oh, show me something better then. And he, you know, loop-de-loops around the brick wall, and this dude runs straight into it. And he notices that Quicksilver's out. Scarlet Witch comes and like, no, if he's harmed you, he's like, oh, it's like, oh no, say, what do you think he was trying to do to me, lady? And he looks at her, he's like, wow, if she's an evil mutant, I want a application blank, because he thinks she's hot. Anyway, she basically just drops the ceiling right on top of him. She's like, oh wow, she just points her finger and the ceiling caves in. And the soldiers start to tie him up, and Quicksilver recovers his footing, and so Magneto, here's Addix over here with his deranged look. He's like, you got the one with the wings, good, good. We'll get them one at a time until the X-Men are no more. I'm trying to do that one voice that they did in the 90s cartoons, but that guy had like such a deep voice. Anyway, as he's trying to capture them, bam, through the wall, I-beam sweeping through the chamber. It's Cyclops that comes in, and Magneto's pinned up against the wall. He's like, Cyclops, you gotta, he's like, Quicksilver, you gotta attack Cyclops now. And he does, and he grabs him by the neck, but Cyclops starts to like, move around, and he's like, careful, his beam is sweeping the ceiling above us where the generator is. And he manages to hit the generator, which like gets all the cables to zap off, and there's like electricity going everywhere. And it falls down, and like everyone just runs off, trying to not get hit. And Cyclops stays by Warren. He's like, I gotta gamble on this and try and hit it perfectly. So he shoots his I beam and blasts the generator out of the cave or out of the tower, and it falls right into the path of one Bobby Drake, aka the Iceman. And it's fallen onto him, so he decides to use his ice powers to make like a slide so that it like lands safely, and then make like a bunch of ice picks so that he can ladder his way up towards the tower. And when he does, he helps Angel free, and then uses his ice on Cyclops' eye to like stop the burning effect, I guess. And they all like they're like, oh, we gotta regroup, and now let's find the others and that rat Magneto and regroup. And like, oh, don't worry about me, Iceman. Save your concern for Quicksilver. We're just gonna need it when we catch him. And they're basically they're heading through this like corridor, and there's like these like weapons around the walls, and they start like to quiver and shake, and then they start like launching straight at the heroes. Basically, it's like, oh, weapons flying through the air. If I didn't know better, I'd suspect this Marvel girl who was with Beast right around the other wall. And it's like, oh, my goodness, I thought it was Magneto's men coming after us. And they all get together, and he's like, last I saw, he was outside the castle. Don't worry, like, where's the professor? And he's like, oh, he's outside the castle. And he's like, we gotta find, we gotta go get Magneto, basically. Meanwhile, while that's happening, they're like, oh no, look, this river of boiling oil rushing towards us that magically spawned inside of a castle. I wonder how this is gonna go down for poor Iceman. And they all start running away from the heat, the fire, and they're like, oh no, there's a stone wall ahead of us. And they all think they're gonna die. And they're like, oh no, and he's like, I can't use my energy rays yet. We're trapped. So we can't end like this. I gotta think of something, but what? And he's like, through the flames have stopped. And through the fire and the flames, in comes Professor X, who's like, you guys, quite simply, I sensed their panic and came and realized there was no boiling oil, but just an illusion created by the mastermind. And he's like, we were fools, deceived. And he's like, do not reproach yourselves. Remember, the evil mutants are just as powerful as we are, even though I definitely think the X-Men are a lot stronger. They're just like, they lack coordination. And while that's happening, Magneto's setting up a trap for them. Two bombs, one of which is a nuclear bomb to blow up the nation. Addix has just turned into a full freaking menace here. And they're like, oh, we'll flee now. The smaller bomb doesn't take the X-Men out. The larger one will, and all of Santa Marco. He's like, oh, but what about the innocent people that'll be killed? He's like, have I told you they're merely Homo sapiens? They would kill us if they could. We only fight in self-defense. And so that while they leave, the X-Men rush to that room that Magneto was in where he placed all the bombs, and Beast is just like too eager to take on the X-Men, not paying attention to what Professor X is saying. And they're like, Professor, what's wrong? He's like, look, you'll topple from your chair. And he's like, stop, stop! I sense danger from behind the door. It's a trap. And Jean's like, oh, it's too late. The Beast is too anxious to he crash through that he doesn't hear you. So the Professor dives out of his chair and hurls himself, and he tries to body block Beast. Is like, no, I've got to protect my X-Men, and bam, the door blows up, knocks out what's his face, Professor X, and Beast gets knocked back too. It's like, oh, the door had been booby trapped, those rotten killers, and Cyclops gets his eye beams, he blasts down the door, and he's like, let's go, Bobby, and it's like, I'm okay, but what about the Professor? He's like, he's still conscious, but he's delirious, and his eyes, they're so glazed, right? So they're basically just trying to get to the stop the evil mutants, and he's like, Cyclops' power beams, that means the first bomb's failed. Run, I already activated the nuclear bomb. In 10 minutes, this will be a wasteland. So they all escape, but Wanda has her doubts. She's like, I can't believe Magneto would just let all these innocent people get harmed. I just can't. And so, Magneto slides down. He's like, Quicksilver, follow me. Every second counts. He's like, there's one thing I need to do, no matter what the consequences. And he ditches Magneto, and he runs, and he starts. He's like, look, another bomb set off to go. And Quicksilver just starts ripping through the bomb and dismantling it. He's like, no. Although I could not allow the nation to be destroyed, my place is still with them. And he runs back to Magneto, and they start like basically like antagonizing them. He's like, you are the betrayers of Homo Superior. Expect no mercy next time we meet. And he's like, Cyclops is trying to go after them. He's like, no, 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 let him go. And while that's going on, they all rush back to Professor X, and he's like, oh, he's alive, but something terrible's happened. His brain seems to be affected. And he's like, no, leave me. No good to you anymore. The explosion deadened my mutant mental powers. I can no longer read minds or throw my thoughts. So they're like, no, we can't ever forget you, sir. We can't. You need us the most. And basically, they're all talking about how, dude, like, it's like, oh, we're not strong. We're strong. Are we strong enough without him? Like, basically, there's a bunch of nonsense that goes on here because everybody knows that Professor X is just gonna come back in like the next issue. But that's that. And from there, we move on to our final comic of the night, our our first duo comic of the I guess the series. I don't think I've ever done a duo comic, but this is I'm kind of like testing the waters here before I do another duo comic that I've been wanting to get to. But we're doing Vision and the Scarlet Witch #1, Volume 2 by Steve Engelhardt. This one came out on October 1st of 1985, and this one goes a little more into depth on um Wanda and Vision, or the Scarlet Witch and Vision, and talks about their backstories, as well as, if anyone has seen WandaVision, there's a lot of stuff from WandaVision in here. If you guys haven't seen WandaVision and you want to remain spoiler free, I'll give you 5 seconds. I'll give you a countdown for you guys to mute, click off, whatever. This is the last bit of that comic before we get into the WandaVision stuff. So I'll count you down here. All right, great. You guys stuck with us. Perfect. Or you guys decided to go watch WandaVision and come back to this moment. If so, you guys are well versed in WandaVision content, so I am going to begin. If you guys remember, here is Vision in that one laboratory room with the two doctors working on him, except the doctors are different. This in the red here is Henrik Gyrick, the guy that worked on the Sentinel program that took out all the mutants. And to the right is Wanda. She's asking how long it'll be until she gets her husband back. And she's like, wife, ha, tell her we'll call her when she's needed. And they're basically just trying to reprogram Vision. They're saying like, oh, she's threatened us, Gyrick, and frankly, I think she has reason. It's like, oh, you do, huh? Well, I'm the agent in charge when it comes to the Avengers as well as the mutants for all that, and I'll decide that what reason is. Basically, at this point in time, the Avengers are now like a government kind of thing. They're under the control of the government, or like yeah, and they're basically the government has a hand in them. And this way predates Civil War. Um, here's the that like chamber that Vision is in. If you guys remember when they were operating on that white version of Vision in WandaVision before, or they were when they were operating on Vision when Wanda broke in and stole him back. Um, Basically like, oh, we're the American government. Man running an internal security investigation on the android's attempt to take over the world, right? Which happened in Avengers 254, which is, if I'm not mistaken, the appearance of Ultron. And it's like, we have the right and the duty to make sure he doesn't try it again. We're also deep inside Project Pegasus. If you guys don't remember, the Captain Marvel company or that worked on that. It's like a place specially designed to keep supervillains in or out, so we have total protection as well. That may be, but he removed the control crystal, which allowed the alien computer to direct him. He's like, it's like Agent Guy. He wakes up basically and he tries to talk to him. He's like, Agent Guy, I am not in fact an android, but a synthezoid, one who reproduces all human functions, both mental and organic, meaning Vision probably has a wiener. Anyway, in short, I am an artificial man. Probably not. He's probably, all robot, you know. And I'll thank you not to insult my wife again. Basically, Wanda's getting like impatient. She starts tapping, and they start to explain a little bit about Vision, and he talks about how when he was first built, it was a voice like any other, and he was called the Human Torch originally. And this is true. Marvel's first comic was the Human Torch versus the Submariner, not the Fantastic Four Human Torch, Johnny Storm, but a different one, completely made of machine. He was a complete machine, and it was Marvel's first comic was the Human Torch against the Submariner, and basically they gave a backstory on how he was created by Phineas Morton in 1939, alongside, and they basically fought alongside Captain America, the Submariner, Bucky Barnes, the Wizard, and a couple other like B-lister characters. I can talk more about what I'm assuming is I think they're called the Justice Society. Um, they're basically like other superheroes that fought World War II with Captain America. Um, they historically re-added or retconned in Wolverine. Um, who was a part of who did fight World War II with Captain America, but there were other characters like the Wizard and I forgot her name, that did fight World War II alongside Namor, the Submariner, and the Human Torch. These are like the main characters that like fought World War II. But basically, he goes Nova and died, and then an artificial man known only artificial death. After many years, the Mad Thinker, who, if I'm not mistaken, um, is the guy, the chubby dude from Spider-Man Homecoming, the guy that built all the tech, if I'm not mistaken, or that might be the Tinker. I'm not I'm anyway. They took the Human Torch and remade him to be able to fight on the new Human Torch. So Robot Human Torch took on Johnny Blaze or Johnny Storm. Um, and they're fighting, and then he loses clearly, and he gets taken and repurposed by Ultron 5. Ultron had been created by Henry Pym, who was known as Goliath. But the intelligence Pym had given it was unstable. Ultron wanted to kill its father, even as it wanted to father a son. Since it was physically impossible for it, it made use of me as its child. Basically, Ultron wanted Vision to be his child. He wanted a robot family, and he found the Professor Horton and made it basically repower um, Vision, I guess. And instead of being able to flame on, um, it had the ability to alter its mass and solidity, allowing it to phase through out in and out of things, as well as make itself really hard as diamond. And then added the ability to absorb and discharge solar power through the gem in its head. And finally, in his desire to make him more mechanical, he erased the mind that had been given to him, the human mind that was put into by Gyrick, or I'm not Gyrick, what's his name? Horton, and he added Wonder Man's brain powers. He just has a remote with Wonder Man's brain powers in it, brain patterns, and yeah, it was not to be for a second Simon Williams, mechanical or otherwise, you know. as Ultron had planned to use them against the Avengers. This is what they were talking about, take over the world. Um, but feeling the good within me, though not then knowing what I had just related, I turned against him and joined the Avengers instead, and he became a prominent Avengers member and fell in love with Wanda, who is now getting upset that her husband is not coming to her. So she starts breaking things. He's like, "Oh, I just met my future bride Wanda. For many months after meeting her, I fought against my growing affections for her, still considering myself a soulless machine. But when I learned the truth that I had been created by to be exactly like a human, I saw that I could truly be her man." And it's like, even I don't want to hear this sort of thing. It's like, you misunderstand, Gyrick. My only point is that I learned then that I was more than a mere machine. And then, when I transcended myself through connection to Isaac, I finally saw myself from the outside, as it were my entirety. Sorry, I couldn't English there for a second. My brain stopped functioning. I sound human now because I am human, right? So Vision is basically trying to explain the fact that to them that he may be a robot, but he's got human emotions. He's a human because he has Wonder Man's brainwaves, right? And it allows him to be who he is. If you guys remember in WandaVision, you guys saw that White Vision, and he explains that Vision and White Vision, when they fight and they explain them the boat of Theseus or whatever, one has the body of Vision, the true body of Vision, but not the mental memories or brain power or brain waves that the other Vision did. And he is basically, without those brain waves and that mental ability, just a robot. But when you add that mental ability and the brain waves of Wonder Man, he is human. He can be human, I guess. Wanda gets pissed off. Time's up. She breaks in. Cops are like, "Ah, I'm sorry, ma'am, but against Skyrick's left strict orders." He's like, "Oh, what's going on?" And she busts open the door. And it's like, "That's impossible. That door won't open without my punching in a precise code. No one could guess." He's like, "I don't have time to guess, guard. I can alter probabilities with my hex spheres." And that is her powers, by the way, in case anyone wanted to know. It is the manipulation of probability, including magic. I guess this is a more like accurate definition of her powers, is probability changing through magic. She can make things happen. Um so she's like, "I am the Scarlet Witch," basically. And she starts like busting through, starts making her way, and she steps on a panel and it's like, "Warning, subject's weight is not confirmed to be Gyrick." And she just like starts smashing in all the machines, breaking everything down. And out comes a bunch of dudes. And he's like, "Hold it right there. Yep, hold it right there, if you please, ma'am." And she's not having it. She breaks him up. This is, by the way, if anyone wants to know who this is the guardsman. Um, anyway, uh, this guy just gets absolutely pummeled by Wanda. He's like, "Go on, witch, show up to the guardsman, but you'll never get where you want to go." I guess he's Irish, I guess. And I guess that's what they're trying to go with the accent. Um, yeah. And she's like, basically, that door is like 20 tons of steel, and it can only be opened by Gyrick from the inside. And she's like, "Yeah, I ain't got time for this." And he's like, "Oh wait, why is it turning brown?" And then she basically rusts it, busts in there, and she's like, "Give me back my husband." And everyone's like, "Oh, what's going on? What's going on?" And she's like, "You cannot do this, witch. He's not a citizen. He has no rights." We, on the other hand, he's like, "You, on the other hand, have 1 minute to let him go with all charges dropped, or I'll bring this whole place down." And the little doctor behind him's like, "Do it." Raymond, I guess his name is. He's like, "By God, Raymond." He's like, "Do it. You don't hear what she said." And he's like, "It's a lot of gibberish. They're not gonna do it," basically. And he's like, "The Vision's body is synthetic. We all know that. If it were black, he'd have a certain problem simply because he was black. If it were a mutant, he'd have problems. But he's a synthezoid. That means his mind can be taken over electronically. He doesn't have a problem with this because you guys are mentally affecting him, right? But if it were any other person, like some kind of minority, in this case, they were talking about African American community, or the mutants, because they are both seen as minorities in the 80s. It's like, "Oh, if they were anyone else, you'd have a problem up your ass." But clearly, because he's a robot, he's allowing this to happen. He's like, "I can't blame him if I want to. I can blame him if I want to. We have to protect ourselves." And he's like, so you, he's like, but he's blah, blah, blah. So he's like, so you say, so he says, but either way, you're both Avengers, and Avengers are subject to whatever the government control decides on. She's like, then guess what, Garrick? We quit. He's like, oh, you can't do that. And she's just like, I just did. If this is the way you treat people who saved this world more times than you can count, we'd rather be private citizens. And they give up their Avengers. They renounce being Avengers. R.I.P. Ronald Reagan has lost two real ones. And he's like, you agreed, darling. He's like, of course, my little witch. I do feel guilty for what I did while tied to Isaac, even though I wasn't myself. He's like, I blah 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 blah. They're talking. They basically walk away, and they're like, oh, and one last thing, Agent Garrick. I like changing my costume now and then, and recently I've gone back to wearing evening gloves. I hope you like them. Basically, Garrick didn't want her to wear gloves, but she put them back on, I guess. And they make out. On their way on the elevator, they start driving off, and this is where WandaVision would begin. The theme song. They're driving into the suburbs. They're driving off, and they're like, oh, we gotta get a house. So they land, they park here. They're like, hello, my wife and I would like to purchase one house, please. And this dude here, he's like, huh? Well, everyone's like a little shocked, but he's like, yeah, well, of course, sir. He's like, my name's Norm Webster. If you guys remember, Norm is the dude that worked with Vision, the accounting dude, that little short dude. Um, Here, I'll show you. Norm was this guy in the comics. This is Norm IRL. He is a accountant, I guess, or well, he was an accountant in WandaVision. I guess he sells houses here, real estate agent. Basically, he's like, oh, what do you have in mind, Mr. Webster? What we had in mind, Mr. Webster, something similar to our old house. I imagine you'll remember it. And he's like, naturally, Mr. Vision, because everybody knows what the Avengers mansion looks like or the Avengers house looks like. And he's like, oh, and you may call me Wanda, you can call me Vision, blah 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 blah. And he's like, it's like, if you guys thought carefully about this, I'll be glad to sell you a house. In fact, it'd be perfect for you, but the climate for tolerance in this area is not really that welcome. People can barely, at the time, handle like interracial stuff. This is interspecies stuff, I guess, because she's technically a robot. And is like, they start laughing, ha ha ha. He's like, sorry, we just had this discussion. Um, we still want to live in Leona, blah 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 blah. It's not Westview here this time. It's Leonia, or whatever it's called. He's like, oh well, let's go look at this house 2 blocks down from here. And this is the house that they decide to purchase with their fat Avengers money. Um, and for some random reason, while they're in their back, this zombie starts to attack them. No reason why. They just purchased their house and bam, zombies start attacking. I did tell Addicts this wasn't Marvel Zombies, but there are zombies. This is a Marvel comic, but this is not Marvel Zombies. Anyway, they start fighting. Vision hits them with everything, and they keep coming, but they're just not feeling any pain because they're zombies. And and Vision decides to like put his hand through the blue one, and it solidifies it basically. And they both start feeling pain. They got knocked out, and Vision starts like V clipping through this robot, through this zombie, and Wanda gets distracted and knocked out by the other zombie, and they end up taking Wanda to their new leader, and the leader's pissed. He's like, "This is not the one I sent you for. We must find the Vision. The Grim Reaper will be here soon, and apparently I'll have to go to battle and begin the search for myself." Basically, they head out, and if I'm not mistaken, um, the Grim Reaper, this guy, I'm pretty sure he's a Hydra character. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he's a big Wonder Man character. Oops, I did not mean to do that. But I'm pretty sure he's a like Hydra related character, as you saw from before. Grim Reaper supervillain appearing in American comics. He's also the brother of Wonder Man. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of connections to him and her to, I'm assuming, Hydra and Wonder Man and stuff like that. But yeah, basically, while she's planning to search for Vision, before her husband, the Grim Reaper comes, Vision's down, waking up on the floor, and he has to like try and find a way to override his programming so that he can phase out of the hand, and he does. I mean, the this dude's like, no, too much pain, and Vision somehow sweating here is like, you'll tell me where they've taken her, or I'll touch you again. And clearly the Avengers are searching for them in some way, shape, or form. Here's Eros, aka Star Fox, looking for them, and um, what's her face, Black Talon, if I'm not mistaken, or this might be Black Talon. I don't know. I forgot their names. They start looking for Vision. Everyone's looking for Vision and Wanda. They're like, these guys were Avengers characters, and we want to know what happened to them. And here's, I think this guy was Black Talon, if I'm not mistaken. Um, he's like, oh, when last your path crossed mine, use your accursed hex powers to thwart my plans. My ally has told me how you need your hands to hurl your hexes. So this time I bounded them, and you're helpless. And Wanda starts to remember her past and how she's no longer Wanda Maximoff or Wanda anymore. Um, because the last time she had that name was when she was raised by her brother Pietro, and they give a little backstory on Wanda. Basically, Wanda, her mother was named Magda, and she was a Balkan gypsy. She fled Magneto's cruel embrace in the last days of her pregnancy, and found Boya. This is Boya, a woman who had been evolved from a cow by the High Evolutionary on Wundagore Mountain. If you guys remember Wundagore Mountain from before, when I gave backstory, Wundagore Mountain is where the Darkhold was put by um, Morgan Le Fay, and where she trapped the soul of Kython, and basically the High Evolutionary lives there. A lot of superheroes go to the High Evolutionary to get their powers. Um, Wanda got her powers from the High Evolutionary. Even though she was born a mutant, but it's a little unclear on her like exact birth, like who her parents are. We know it's Magda and someone else. It's unclear who her father is. The going thing is that it is Magneto, but there could be someone else. Um, a lot of other characters have gotten their powers from Wundagore Mountain. The big one, my favorite, spider character that has gotten their powers from Wundagore Mountain is Spider Woman, Jessica Drew. She got her powers on Wundagore Mountain. Basically, Magda here bore twins, um, and then came Bob and Madeline Frank, who had learned of Wundagore during their years at as the Wizard and Miss America in World War II. Who was Miss America was a flying person in the background, and the Wizard was the super fast dude. And Madeline and her own child died in the birthing, so Boya presented us to Bob as his own. But thinking we had caused his wife's death, he had refused us, and we came to be raised by the Maximoffs. So basically, Magda died of child birthing complications, I'm assuming. Um, or no, what did it say? Um, yeah, I think she was like too scared to raise the children. Something happened where Magda could not raise the kids, and so these two had decided to take the kids as their own, but rejected them because of the fact that um they ended up rejecting the kids later on because they believed that the kids had killed Madeline or Miss America, and so they were given off to the Maximoffs, who would later be um, Magneto. And so Black Talon returns, or what's her face returns to speak to Black Talon. She's like, I found no sign of them, but of course the water obliterated what sign there might have been. And he's like, I don't think like that. Where can he be? And he's like, oh, could it be a trick? Could he have followed you? And he's like, followed me. And while they're speaking, Wanda sets herself free, uses her hex magic to push away the little thumb binders or whatever, the finger binders, and in comes the Grim Reaper. It's like, oh my love, smooch smooch smooch, and he's like, yes, I'll say it, and I will say it more. The vision is important, but that which stands within the tent is essential, and I have kept it safe throughout. And they're like, you're wrong. And Vision did follow what's her face, and they led her back to Wanda, where she got broken free, and the two of them begin to fight. They take on the Grim Reaper. It's like, oh, you made a fool of me. And while they were fighting, they had discovered behind the tent was none other than Simon Williams. And I'm taking this as clickbait. Thumbs up, baby. Anyway, if anyone wants to know who Simon Williams is, it's Wonder Man, the man that was used to create Vision. Uh, Basically, Vision sees him and then turns around and gets his ass handed to him by the Grim Reaper. And while that happens, Wanda basically just tries to fight off, but she gets hurt too. And so Vision has to like trudge through and like help them out, and he does. He ends up like putting them on the run, and they escape. There was a lot to this, and I didn't know whether or not we would cover this, but we would get to this point. But yeah, there's basically that. Vision stays by Wanda's side, and that is the end of this week's episode. I did have a lot more that I wanted to talk about with Wanda, but they were so long that I figured I could cover them as separate events. Wanda does have a lot of like events pertaining to her, and next week you're getting a Wanda event for the end of the month, as I do at the end of every month. I cover a event, so you're getting some kind of Scarlet Witch event next Monday. And then after that, I will definitely look into what characters you want from me. I'm thinking White Tiger, Cloak and Dagger. Um, someone's asked me to do Reed Richards. I might do Reed Richards. I've heard Jessica Jones, Daredevil. Someone gave me a good character that I've been holding in my back pocket. I just need to wait for the right time to throw this character out, but I definitely do want to do him. Uh, I know Addicts isn't here yet, but I will give a grade if you guys want on Wanda Maximoff. Where is where's that? Somewhere here. On the Vision and the Scarlet Witch, I'll give or on, I guess on Scarlet Witch. For me personally, if I had to grade the Scarlet Witch, I'd give her like a 9 out of 10. She's a solid character. I just think the way they wrote her in the beginning was always a little weird. How like they couldn't accurately pertain like figure out what the character belonged to, what she was, and but it was great. I genuinely think that Wanda has a lot of great character great what do you call it? She definitely has a lot of like good characteristics about her, and yeah. Uh I guess that's all for this week's episode. I know Addicts had to go, but he explained to me what was going on, so it's all good. So yeah, I guess that's this week's episode of Marvel Buddies. If you guys want, you guys know the links to everything for next week. You guys have the Google Forms, the YouTube link, and if you guys do want to email me, you guys can always feel free to email me. But that is this week's episode of Marvel Buddies. I kept it a little shorter than usual. It's a little half hour shorter than usual. But yeah, thank you guys all for coming in and stopping by and listening to me ramble about superheroes for an hour. I will see you guys next week for this exact thing. Peace.